Operation Market Garden, with Market being the airborne component, was an attempt to exploit Allied advances made in France after the Normandy and southern France operations. By mid-September 1944, the German armies had been driven from most of France and Belgium. Sensing an opportunity to press what he thought were discouraged and disorganized German forces, Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery devised a bold plan to drive into Holland and cross the Rhine River at the town of Arnhem. The British 1st Airborne Division was tasked with taking and holding the bridge over the Rhine River, while the American 101st and 82nd Airborne Divisions were assigned to bridges in and around the cities of Eindhoven and Nijmegen, respectively. Scheduled to occur over the 17th, 18th, and 19th of September, Market would be the largest airborne operation of the war. It would also be the first time that glider pilots were used as an organized infantry force in the war. In order for Market to succeed, all paratroop and glider forces had to be in their assigned areas at their given time without exception. As bridges were secured, the British 30 Corps would move north on a single-lane road to reinforce the 1st Airborne at Arnhem. It was a bold plan with no contingency options. If any part of the plan failed, the entire operation would fail. From the beginning, problems developed. First, the Germans were exhibiting more resistance than expected. The airborne forces could hold ground already taken, but had difficulty advancing. The second problem was the weather. On the 3rd day of the operation, bad weather prevented aircraft from taking off from England. Of particular concern to the 82nd Airborne, who were already facing challenges in the accomplishment of their mission, the inability of the 325th Glider Infantry Regiment to reinforce the division at Nijmegen was a serious setback. The objective of the 82nd was to take the Nijmegen Bridge, which was in German hands. The glider pilots who lifted the 82nd Airborne to Nijmegen on the 17th and 18th had assembled in an area where they intended to catch the resupply trucks going back to Belgium and from there onto their bases. The location was a hunting lodge north of the town of Mook called Jotslot Mookerheide. On the evening of the 19th, General James Gavin was told that he would not see the 325th GIR as expected. He was now short one entire regiment and had a bridge needing to be taken on schedule. General Gavin notified the glider pilots that they would be put on the line in place of the missing 325th Glider Infantry Regiment. On the evening of the 19th, those glider pilots from the 313th and the 61st Troop Carrier Groups occupied their positions alongside the 82nd Airborne. The 9th Troop Carrier patch shows clearly on this glider pilot's arm. We see on the hilt of the knife the name Redfern. This identifies the man in the photo as 2nd Lieutenant J. Redfern. This map, marked up by the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, shows glider pilot positions on the evening of the 21st of September. On the 20th of September, 150 glider pilots reinforced Company A, 1st Battalion, 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne Division. On the 21st, 1st Battalion received 285 additional glider pilots and 100 were put in position as indicated. 50 more were in position by 01:15 hours, with 145 more held in reserve. By 08:30 hours, all glider pilots were in position. The blue line represents the 300 glider pilots on the front line. In the 313th Troop Carrier Group history, Captain Eglin Andros reported, "At 2000 hours, the group leader was alerted to assemble at the CP with the other group leaders. They were told at the time that they were the division reserves and that they were to take positions east of Mook on Drop Zone N with the 505th Paratroopers. They assembled and hiked 5 miles to be in position by 0300 hours, as an attack was expected in the area at dawn." Glider pilot Fred Lundy, who was assigned to the 49th Troop Carrier Squadron and who is currently an advisor to the Leon B. Spencer research team, said,
"Each night we could see nothing ahead of us due to a very thick and dense fog. It could be the reason the Germans did not attack. I remember one gun the Germans used to shoot screaming memes, which was a psychological weapon to instill fear, and was not very accurate. They would shoot one and then move the gun before they would use it again. If they shot it twice in one place, we would be able to zero in on it and destroy it. On Friday night, September 22nd, from midnight until 9 o'clock, our sector received a continuous shelling by heavy mortar and 88 millimeter fire, which gave us the impression that a large attack would follow. It never came."
While the role of the 313th was coming to an end, it was just beginning for the glider pilots of the 440th. They took off on 23 September with the men and equipment of the 82nd Airborne Division that had been held up by the weather, including the 325th Glider Infantry Regiment. For glider pilot Frank Teflowitz, who changed his last name to Brandon after the war, it would be some time before he returned from this mission.
My tow ship's engine was hit by heavy ground fire and exploded, forcing me to immediately release my glider. I saw my flaming tow ship's engine on fire as he passed on my right. I hoped that they would make it back to safety on one engine. Our altitude was about 2,500 feet, and we glided a significant distance from where my tow ship was hit before we started to lose airspeed and altitude. I had to find any landing spot that was into the wind. Tracers were coming up, and all the unseen bullets between each tracer wasn't being hit. I kept the speed up to be harder to hit and get it down with all the ground fire. Fortunately, I saw one small opening where I might possibly land. I headed for the open area and drew much ground fire until I passed over the trees, at which time the gunfire noise ceased. The opening was about half of a football field. I pushed in both foot pedals full. At maybe 40 miles per hour, we nosed straight into the ground to a screeching halt. All of us sustained injuries, but we had no fatalities. We exited the glider, and with only carbines, we crawled over to a low spot. We were maybe 30 yards to the trees. We were short of Nijmegen, our intended landing area. The ranking infantrymen decided for us to go 2 at a time towards the woods to find the way to the paratroopers. It was quiet as could be. The first 2 to get up immediately came under machine gun fire, then mortars. Not a fair fight against our carbines. We had no choice but to surrender. There were lots of Germans, and I felt the butt of a rifle the first time in my life. I was taken to Stalag Luft 3.
Frank was liberated on April 23, 1945, by the 14th Armored Division of General Patton's Third Army. In 1982, the Kingdom of the Netherlands determined that the over 1,900 glider pilots that had flown the Market mission should be awarded their nation's Orange Lanyard, as had members of all other U.S. Army units that had served in battle on their soil.